Hold on to your seats because we're diving headfirst into a moment that set Hollywood ablaze, a raw, unfiltered collision that left the world speechless. Imagine Leonardo DiCaprio, the man who's dodged the media's glare with icy cool for decades, suddenly cornered on live TV. A host's razor-sharp question pushes him too far, and for the first time the guarded star lets his walls crumble. What happens when Hollywood's most elusive icon fires back in front of millions? This isn't just a story, it's a seismic event that shook the studio, stunned the audience, and set the internet on fire. Before we unravel every heart-pounding detail, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button for Prime Narrator, smash that like button, and drop a comment as this drama unfolds. Your support fuels these cinematic tales of celebrity chaos. And trust me, you'll want to weigh in on this one. The stage was set long before Leonardo DiCaprio stepped into the electric atmosphere of the View's New York studio. For weeks, the internet had been humming with whispers, rumors, and scorching takes about the man who's been Hollywood's golden boy for decades. Online forums dissected his dating history with surgical precision. Every new girlfriend, every breakup, every tabloid headline about his age limit splashed across X. Then there were the murmurs about his environmental activism. Was it genuine passion, or just a polished PR stunt? Critics on X called him out for preaching climate change while jetting around on private planes and lounging on mega yachts. The noise was relentless, a tidal wave of speculation that followed him like a shadow. By the time Leo agreed to appear on The View to promote his latest film, the pressure was already simmering, ready to explode. That crisp autumn morning, Manhattan skyline glowed under a soft golden light. But inside ABC's studio, the air crackled with anticipation. Fans had lined up outside hours earlier, their chatter a blend of excitement and curiosity. Would Leo dodge the tough questions, as he always did? Or would something finally pierce that polished exterior? Backstage, the production crew buzzed with nervous energy, adjusting cameras, testing mics, stealing glances toward the green room where the man himself waited. Leonardo DiCaprio, the Oscar-winning heartthrob, the environmental crusader, the enigma. He sat quietly, his signature baseball cap pulled low, his eyes betraying a flicker of unease. His publicist hovered nearby, offering last-minute reassurances. But Leo's gaze was fixed on his reflection in the dressing room mirror, as if searching for something or someone beneath the surface. Leo was no stranger to the media circus, had navigated countless interviews with the finesse of a tightrope walker, always keeping professional, always steering clear of anything too personal. But today felt different. There was a weight in the air, a sense that the carefully crafted image had built over decades was about to be tested. The hosts of The View, Whoopi Goldberg, Joy Behar, and the razor-sharp Sunny Hostin, were known for their no-holds-barred approach, and Sunny in particular had a reputation for cutting to the fluff. Word backstage was that she had told producers she wasn't letting Leo off easy. She wanted answers, not sound bites. As the iconic The View theme music played and the cameras went live, the audience erupted in cheers. Leo walked out all charm and easy smiles, his tailored suit hugging his frame as he waved to the crowd. Whoopi, the seasoned moderator, greeted him warmly, her smile genuine, but her eyes watchful. Joy cracked a quick joke about how the studio just got a whole lot better looking, which drew laughs and lightened the mood. But Sunny Hostin, seated 2 chairs down, was a study in focus. Her hands were folded neatly on the table, her posture calm, but her gaze locked on Leo like a hawk sizing up its mark. The audience sensed that the crew sensed that something was coming. For the first few minutes, everything went as expected. Leo talked about his new film, a gritty drama about a man fighting against impossible odds, and he leaned into his passion for ocean conservation. He spoke about his foundation's latest initiatives, protecting coral reefs, funding renewable energy projects, and the audience hung on every word, their applause warm and enthusiastic. But then, like a storm cloud rolling, the atmosphere shifted. Sunny tilted her head, her eyes narrowing just slightly, and her voice cut through the pleasantries like a blade. Leo, she said, her tone calm, but laced with an edge that made the studio go still. You've been one of the loudest voices on climate change, urging governments, corporations, and everyday people to act. But a lot of folks out there, and I'm sure you've seen the chatter on X, say your personal choices tell a different story. Private jets, yachts, lavish vacations. Do you think that undermines your credibility? As an activist, the room froze. You could feel the air being sucked out of the studio. The audience, which had been clapping moments before, went silent, their eyes darting between Sunny and Leo. The camera zoomed in, catching the subtle twitch in Leo's jaw, the way his fingers tightened around the arm of his chair. Whoopi's expression flickered with caution, while Joy shifted uncomfortably, her usual quick wit nowhere to be found. For a moment, Leo just sat there, his piercing blue eyes locked on Sunny, unblinking, as if weighing his response with precision of a chess master. I've heard that criticism before. He began, his voice low and measured, but with a hint of steel beneath it. And I've addressed it over the years. I've made changes, cutting down my travel, investing in sustainable tech funding projects that make a real difference. But let's be clear, this fight isn't about one person's carbon footprint. It's about systemic change. It's about governments and industries stepping up, focusing on my travel habits. That's a distraction from the real problem. The audience murmured a mix of agreement and uncertainty. A few clapped softly, but the tension in the room was palpable. Sunny didn't flinch. Her eyes stayed locked on Leo, her expression unyielding. I hear you, she said, her voice steady but pointed. But as a role model, don't you think you have a responsibility to lead by example? It's tough for people to take your message seriously when they see you living a lifestyle most can't even dream of. That was a moment something shifted in Leo. The cool, collected demeanor that had carried him through decades of fame wavered just enough to let the world see the frustration simmering beneath. He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a quieter, more intense register. I get that I'm an easy target, he said, each word deliberate, but sometimes I think people want a perfect hero instead of actual progress. I spent my entire adult life fighting for this planet, my money, my time, my name. If all we do is tear down the people trying to make a difference, then what are we really accomplishing? Are we fixing the climate crisis, or are we just pointing fingers? The studio erupted in applause, louder now, with a few audience members letting out whistles of support. But Sunny wasn't done. She leaned forward, her hand still folded, her voice calm but unrelenting. I think people just want honesty, she said. They want to know the man behind the speeches, because when they see someone preaching sacrifice while living in luxury, it feels hypocritical. That word, hypocritical, hung in the air like a guillotine. The audience gasped softly, sensing a line that had just been crossed. Leo's famous composure cracked not into anger, but into something raw, more human. His eyes narrowed, and for the first time that morning his voice carried a tremor of something deeper. Anger, yes, but also exhaustion, the weight of years under scrutiny. You know what's hypocritical? He shot back, his voice rising just enough to make the room feel smaller. It's sitting here tearing someone apart for doing what they can while billion-dollar industries keep burning the planet to the ground. You want honesty? Fine. I'm not perfect. I've never claimed to be, but I'd rather be criticized for trying and stay silent while the world burns. The silence that followed was deafening. You could hear the faint hum of the studio lights, the soft creak of a chair as Joy shifted awkwardly. The audience sat frozen, their eyes wide, some clutching their hands together, as if unsure whether to clap or stay. Quiet. Whoopi raised a hand, her voice gentle but firm, trying to steer the ship back to calmer waters. Okay, let's take a breath here, she said, her smile warm but cautious. We're all passionate about these issues. But Sunny wasn't letting go. She leaned forward again, her eyes still locked on Leo. The first, respect your passion, Leo, she said, her tone softer but still probing. But I think it's fair to ask, wouldn't your message hit harder if your personal choices align more closely with it? Leo's lips twitched, not quite a smile, but something closer to exasperation. I think the message is strong enough without being reduced to my private life, he said, his voice steady but laced with an edge of an actor, not a politician. I've chosen to use my platform to raise awareness, to fund solutions. If we're going to solve this crisis by picking apart every plane ticket, we're already lost. The audience chuckled, a small release of tension. But Sunny pressed on. It's not about every plane ticket, she said firmly. It's about authenticity. People feel like they're being told to sacrifice, while the people telling them to do so aren't sacrificing themselves. Leo's hands tightened on the table, his knuckles whitening slightly. The camera caught the moment, zooming in on the tension in his posture. Authenticity. He repeated the word, slow and deliberate, like he was turning it over in his mind. Do you think the Amazon rainforest stops burning because I didn't take a plane today? Do you think the Arctic ice waits for us to decide who's authentic enough to speak up? This isn't about one person, it's about a planet. The applause came again, stronger this time, rolling to the studio. Like a wave, a few audience members stood their claps, echoing with conviction. Whoopi seized the moment, her voice cutting through the noise. All right, we're all on the same side when it comes to saving the planet, she said, her tone light but firm. Let's not turn this into a cage match. But Sunny wasn't backing down. I'm not saying it's a cage match, she said, her voice rising just enough to hold the room's attention. I'm saying celebrities have influence, and when they say one thing and do another, it confuses people, it weakens a movement. That was when Leo's tone shifted again, sharper now, like a blade honed by years of pent-up frustration. I've spent decades fighting for these causes, he said, his voice steady but burning with intensity, not in tweets, not in sound bites. I've sat with scientists, met with world leaders, walked through indigenous communities, watching their homes disappear. I've seen ecosystems collapse while we sit in air-conditioned studios arguing about optics. If people care more about how I get to a conference than the crisis itself. Maybe we need to ask who's really distracted here at the studio. Exploded applause thundered through the room mixed with cheers, and a few gasped. The camera panned across the audience, catching faces lit with excitement, some nodding, others whispering to their neighbors. Sunny's lips pressed into a tight line, her eyes narrowing, as if she were recalibrating. She wasn't retreating, but she was measuring her next move. Leo leaned back in his chair, his chest rising and falling as if he had just run a marathon. For a moment, no one spoke. The way his words hung in the air, heavy and undeniable. Whoopi, ever the diplomat, raised her hands with a smile. Okay, folks, let's keep our seats. We're going to take a quick break. But when we come back, we'll talk more about Leo's new movie and the passion behind it. The camera light blinked red, and the show cut to commercial, but the energy in the studio didn't fade. It intensified. Audience members leaned toward each other, their whispers buzzing like static backstage. Producers exchanged wide-eyed glances, one muttering, "This is going to go viral the second we post it." Camera operators shook their heads, as if still processing what they just witnessed. Leo's publicist stood just off stage, her face pale, mouthing, "Breathe, Leo, breathe." When the show returned, the mood had shifted. The audience's applause was louder, more charged, like they'd been waiting for the next round. Whoopi eased back into conversation with her trademark warmth. We're back with Leonardo DiCaprio talking about his new film, his environmental work, and well, some very spirited debate. She chuckled, but her eyes flicked between Leo and Sunny, as if bracing for what might come next. Sunny, undeterred, picked up where she left off, her tone measured, but still probing. "Leo, in your new film, you play a man who risks everything for what he believes, and some would say you're doing that in real life with your activism. But do you ever feel like your public image fair or not get in the way of the work you're trying to do?" Was a softer question, but the edge was still there like a velvet glove over steel fist. Leo leaned forward, his hands clasped, his voice steadier now, as if head found his footing again. "I've learned that no matter what you do, someone's going to try to shift the focus away from the issues." He said, "That's just part of being in the public. But I can't let that stop me. The stakes are too high." The audience murmured their approval, a young woman in the front row nodding with wide-eyed intensity. Sunny nodded too, but her eyes gleamed with that same resolve. "People want to know the heart behind the cause," she said. "Some feel like your silence on certain parts of your life, your wealth, your choices create a wall between you and the people you're trying to reach." Leo's gaze didn't waver. He was silent for a moment, as if weighing the cost of opening up. When he spoke, his voice was quieter, more introspective. "There's a reason I keep some things private," he said. "I've seen what happens when you bear it all. The media twisted, the message gets buried, and suddenly the cause is just noise. I didn't become an actor to be a politician. I didn't become an activist to be a saint. I'm just a guy try to do some good with what I got." The audience clapped again, softer this time, but heartfelt. Sunny nodded, but her next question cut deeper. "You've been vocal about corporations and governments failing on climate change," she said. "But what about Hollywood film productions have massive carbon footprints, waste travel resources? Isn't that a conversation worth having?" The room tense again. Leo crossed his arms, a subtle defiance in the gesture. "I've had those conversations," he said, his voice firm behind closed doors with studios, with producers. "I've pushed for greener sets, better practices. But let's not kid ourselves. Hollywood's not the one drilling in the Arctic. It's not the one funding climate denial. It's easy to point fingers at what's visible. It's harder to go after the real power." The applause roared again, louder, fiercer, with more audience members standing. Sunny's smile was tight, acknowledging his point, but still poised for more. "You're one of the most visible voices," she said. "With that comes responsibility." Leo's eyes softened, but his voice held firm. "I accept that. Drop your thought below and make sure to subscribe for more explosive celebrity